Are you guys ready?
The following contest is scheduled for one fall. Making his way to the ring from the United States of America, weighing in at 165 pounds, Luigi!
All these superstars come into this match incredibly hungry to prove their dominance. I can't wait to see what unfolds. Get ready to go the distance. The competition level has never been higher, but this guy's ready to prove he can hang. Look at the focus and drive in his eyes, ready to prove he's the best this division has to offer.
Poltergeist, apparitions, werewolves, vampires, witches, gremlins, ghoulies, demons, goblins, ogres, or swamp creatures. He's a skeptical robot that doesn't believe in ghosts. Poltergeist, apparitions, werewolves, vampires, witches, gremlins, ghoulies, demons, goblins, ogres, or swamp creatures. Doesn't believe in ghosts. Poltergeist, apparitions, werewolves, vampires, witches, gremlins, ghoulies, demons, goblins, ogres, or swamp creatures. Ogres, and swamp creatures.
Hello! Welcome to Skeptical Robot. I am Luigi Greenberg. Thank you so much for being with us this evening, and want to bring some attention right off the bat to Donna G. Thank you so much for the $20. Evening, Luigi. You know what would be great? Your analysis on Wizard of Oz Hanging Munchkin story. As much as I would love to agree with you, Donna G., I don't know that anybody cares. And I know where that came from. He's trying. He's got spies. Moles, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for being here. I'm so happy to have you all here. And let me go ahead and bring out my co-host. You know him, you love him. He is the vampire hunter extraordinaire, Corndiff. What's happening, buddy?
Good evening.
Always with the amazing introductions.
That's right.
How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing okay. My voice is trying to quit on me, but I'm still here.
Turn you up just a little bit. I do think you sound a little strained. I don't want you to wear your voice out.
All right.
But anyway, thanks so much for being here, man.
Glad to be here.
So happy to have you here with such an interesting topic. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Dyatlov Pass incident. If you don't know about it, it's a crazy one. It's a weird one. And we are actually only talking about it at the suggestion of my special guest. He is the phone screener to the stars, like Tukey and Cardiff. Coming off a great episode last night on Idiot Autopsy, I believe is the name of the show. Please welcome JT the Watcher. How's it going, JT?
Hello. How's everybody doing out there?
Welcome, JT.
We are doing great. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you for recommending this topic. I know this is one you're passionate about.
I mean, I wouldn't know about being passionate, but
you definitely sound pretty passionate about it. No, I know that you know all about it, and that's what I mean. Oh, look at this Hamhead. Amazing with the 5 gifted Luigi Greenberg memberships. Thank you, Hamhead. Thank you so much. Man, starting off the show great. Thank you so much. So generous. Love him here. Let's see who got these. Mr. Doodle got one of those memberships.
All right.
Fantastic. Spurg Snake. I believe I saw him in the chat. Spurg Snake is
nice.
Awesome. Vagina Wrinkle.
Always a classic.
Vagina Wrinkle 13. There were 12 other Vagina Wrinkles. And let's see. Coach DK. Coach DK. That's a new one to me. Thank you for being here. Indian Bruh. I've actually talked to Indian Bruh a couple of times. Very nice guy. Thank you so much Hope you enjoy that. And Wahrheit macht free.
Damn.
Sounds like a German history enthusiast of some sort. Don't know that one, but welcome. All are welcome. Let's see here. I like this here. Mr. Doodle, I'm a member because my muscles are huge. That's what I hear. I hear they're very huge, yes. Thanks for being here, Mr. Doodle. You're awesome. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Well, JT, like I said, this one, you really encouraged me to do this one. How about that? I won't say you're passionate, but you encouraged me to do this one.
It was difficult to get you to do this one. Actually,
It was difficult, and I will admit that. And my reasoning, and I do feel the need to kind of explain this a little bit to the audience. This is a little bit of a departure for stuff we talk about. In some extent, to a large extent, it's not. But typically, the theme of our show is about lying and grifting. We talk about silly things that people believe in, but we also talk about who stands to profit from those silly, stupid things. We talked about the Warrens. We've talked about a really stupid JFK conspiracy, and we've talked about Bullshido. All of those things had someone who was feeding these lies to people in order to gain something. This one's a little different in that it is a very complicated mystery. We really don't know the facts of this one. We don't know the outcome, but it attracted all of those people looking to believe in something stupid. It attracted people who wanted to tell you that it was due to aliens. I believe there's a Bigfoot involved. There's a Bigfoot theory. I believe there's a ghost theory. There's a lot of just improbable shit. But it turns out if you just look into it, there might be a perfectly scientific explanation. And so that's why I thought it might be good conversation piece. Now, if you don't know about the Dyatlov Pass incident, we will give you an overview, but it's pretty complicated. But before we get into that, JT, would you like to give a quick summary of the facts of this one?
The main thing you got to remember that this event happened in the 1950s in communist Russia. So a lot of the facts the rest of the world didn't see until after the fall of communism around the early 1990s. Information started getting leaked throughout the world about this unsolved case that it was very popular in Russia during the time because nobody knew what happened. Everything, like you said, from a Yeti to an aliens to government conspiracy cover-up, everything's been thrown at this case. And the only thing that anyone knows is that nobody knows what really happened. But there's a lot of proof out there, or not proof, but there's a lot of evidence towards a Yeti theory. There's evidence towards government cover-up. There's evidence towards the alien theory. So it's a big hodgepodge of a lot of different theories all combined into one.
Wow, that's actually pretty good. It's more than I really expected you to say on that. I'm impressed.
It's been a great episode, guys. All right.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
No, that's really good, JT. That is a huge element of it, is that in addition to all, it's a bunch of puzzles wrapped up in one another. There are all these weird theories about, supernatural, paranormal things. But then on top of that, we do know for a fact that the Western world wasn't even given any of this information because of the government, which adds another layer of intrigue, or whatever you want to call it, to it. Because, as I understand it, and please correct me, that communist Russia never, ever wanted any attention that would paint them in anything other than a perfectly positive light. Is that a good way to summarize that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just like China is today.
Yeah, and it's weird it's so weird when we know what we know, of that world now. There's so much speculation that can happen, whether or not it's right. Whether or not it's right to speculate, I don't know, and I don't know. There's a weird part of me that actually doesn't even want to speculate too much about it because we know nothing. But it's just weird. What we do know is that they didn't want to talk about it. So anyway, without wasting any more breath and my annoying ass commentary that really just doesn't know enough, let's get into it. Okay, so JT, give us all the facts.
Well, I did. I sent you the video like earlier this week, right?
You did?
Yeah, man. I labeled the video facts, thinking, "Oh, hey, play this, and this will answer a lot of questions."
It's literally labeled facts.
You sent me the video?
Yeah, I emailed it to you. You got that, right?
I was about to say, fuck, if you send it to me, oh no.
Of course I got it, JT. I was curious if
Good.
I was curious if you were going to talk about
the
it.
show will be like 6 hours long of me just rambling on here.
Well, maybe that's what I want.
Well, you didn't tell me that. You didn't tell me. I didn't know nothing about this. He was like, "Just show up, man. We'll figure it out."
Yeah, that sounds like me. Just show up. All right, no, let's watch JT's video. I was really kind of hoping you were going to just start talking and tell us all about it. All right, let's do it.
Dyatlov Pass incident is a dramatic and mysterious true story that unfolded in Sverdlov Oblastov, USSR in 1959. It occurred on the eastern slopes of Kholat-Syakhl Mountain, located in the Ural Mountains. Mount Kholat-Syakhl literally means the Mountain of the Dead in the local language of the Mansi tribe of Siberian natives.
And if I'm not wrong, I believe that was actually also one of the things that people have speculated about from a supernatural perspective, is that it was called the Mountain of the Dead, and therefore it had to have some sort of supernatural foundation for the unexplained. Anyway.
Yeah, because there was a group of the native Matsi people out there who they called
the what people?
The Mats. I can't. All right, you know what I'm talking about. But
it sounded like you said the bad word.
No, the Matsi.
I think they're called Mansi.
Mansi, yeah, I knew that. But yeah, they call it the Dead Mountain because when they translate it from their language into Russia, it sounds like, oh, cool, Dead Mountain. But in reality, it's called that because if you look at like the picture of this here, it's barren. Like there's no trees or vegetation. Therefore, it's a dead mountain. So there's nothing spooky behind it. That's all.
And they were all Nazis.
Nancy.
Yes. Oh, yes. Here we go. Yes, Dang Lizard. Thank you. I never would trust for JT to create a video package for me without reviewing it. You never know when John's ass is going to show up.
You got that Rumble channel going, right? Always got to have a backup.
Love you, JT.
It had already gained negative notoriety long before the Dyatlov Pass incident, which occurred on the side of this mountain. Local native tribes avoided this peak completely and never tried to visit it during their hunts. Igor Dyatlov, who was the leader of these hikers, was especially captivated by Mansi people, and even made his own Mansi Russian dictionary, which he also took with him on his last trip. The Dyatlov ski team consisted of 8 men and 2 women, who...
I know that's a noble thing to create your own dictionary, but I feel like in today's world, you'd look like a crazy person if you said, I made my own dictionary.
He must have had a lot of time on his hands. But
yeah, no kidding. He did this and cross-country skiing. He seems like a real weirdo.
Well, at the age of 23, he was like a master hiker and climber. Like he was the guy leading all these people. So he was the highest level at the age of 23.
I don't remember if I don't remember if this package goes into it. If not, we'll talk about it. But there was a reason that they were doing this. Hold on, let's see. Okay,
yeah, they talk about it.
Okay.
Who, except for Alexander Zolotaryov, were mostly students or graduates from the Ural Polytech Institute, located in Sverdlovsk Oblast, Russia. Igor Dyatlov. This whole incident is named after the leader of ill-fated hiking group, Igor Dyatlov. At the time, he was a student of UPI University, Yuri Doroshenko. Yuri Doroshenko had an impulsive personality and was famous for once running at a giant bear with a geologist hammer to save his groupmates. Lyudmila Dubinina. She was a fourth-year student in UPI University and was the youngest of the Dyatlov group. She had considerable mountaineering experience.
What'd you say?
I said, no, I was just saying that, I would if I was, the opportunity arose itself.
And like cross-country skiing is like a really, really awkward, weird exercise that exercises every muscle in your body. She's fit.
Yuri Krivonishenko. Yuri was a friend of Dyatlov group and always took part in almost all of the expeditions led by Igor. His clothes would later bear traces of radioactivity. Alexander Kolevatov. He was a fourth-year student at the UPI University and also worked as a ski tour instructor. He joined Dyatlov's expedition to achieve promotion to the rank of master or expert instructor by adding performance points to his degree. Nikolai Thibault Brino. Thibault graduated in 1950.
Okay, can you explain that part, JT, about the points on the degree?
Sorry, man. Was it
okay?
With major in civil engineering from UPI University. Semyon Alexandrovich Zolotaryov. Semyon was an instructor at Koryovska Tour Base at the time of his death. He was the oldest. He asked to be called Sasha, and that's the name that appears in many documents and memoirs. Semyon served in the military through the entire Second World War and also got 4 military awards.
All right, now
remember this
okay.
guy.
Yes, now, I don't know if this video goes very deep into it, but he was not originally part of the group, correct?
No, he wasn't. He was kind of like a last-minute type replacement. But
yes. And, okay, so yes, I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, so he was a last-minute replacement of this group. Now, what I was asking about earlier, though, I would think they would have said it by now, but let's just go ahead and just get this out of the way. The reason that they were doing this, and JT, correct me if I'm wrong here, the reason they were doing this is because there was a certification in Russia when it comes to hiking. So like the way you'd get like a license, like your CPA or your medical license. That so
they were trying to go. They were going to the next degree,
right?
Hiking thing,
and it was the highest degree. There were 3 degrees. You had to do one that was governed by a certain terrain and obstacles and difficulty. And once you got past that one, you were allowed to test for 2, and then once you tested at 3, you were considered an expert. I know I read somewhere what the benefits were, and like like it opened opportunities for them for something, and I don't remember what.
They were all scientists. They were all like engineers at this science college. So if they got this, then they could be able to like get like a government job and go kind of like wherever in the country, and not because Russia is so big and vast that they wouldn't have to worry about, can I survive? Just kind of
okay.
It basically looked really good on their resume.
Got it. Okay, so I wasn't fucking with you earlier when I asked you about the points on their degree. This is what I was talking about. Like this is what I associate the two. I might be wrong, but I was associating this with those points on the degree. Like getting this was going to make their degree have like a little extra punch and make their resume have a little extra punch. But I just didn't know that part of why. So that makes a lot of sense. There were vast areas of that weren't civilized or populated, and so basically they were opening doors for themselves to be able to travel for jobs while having already proved that they can survive in any kind of environment. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, especially, they're all young except for this one guy. They're all in college except for that one guy. So, to them, it was beneficial to prosper in 1950s Russia.
Yes. And this is all they had to do because the internet had not been invented yet. They had to walk across snow. Okay, so that's what I wanted to get out of there. That they weren't just doing this for pleasure. They weren't just doing this to, as a hobby. I mean, obviously it was a hobby, but they all had an intention. I guess to me that adds like a little layer of drama to the story, that they were all doing this to better themselves, to better their lives, to get these extra points, and it turned out very tragic.
Yeah, they weren't just doing this as like, oh, let's take a week off and go on vacation. Like there's a big reason behind doing this.
Right.
Like they didn't necessarily like have to, but if they wanted to like better, like they all just kind of just knew that they wanted to do it, and this wasn't like a leisure activity.
Yeah. And there's honestly, that really isn't an element of the story that adds anything to the facts. It was something I think is a little dramatic, a little extra sad. But yeah, they weren't just screwing around. They all had an intention. But let's go ahead and keep going. Oh shit! Sorry.
Zinaida Alexeyevna Kolmogorova. She was a fifth-year student at the UPI University and was an experienced hiker, Rustem Vladimirovich Slobodin. He graduated from the UPI University in 1958. Yuri Yudin was the sole survivor.
That dude looks scary.
Of the Dyatlov incident. On 28 January, after suffering from several health ailments, including rheumatism and a congenital heart defect, he turned back due to knee and joint pain that made him unable to continue the hike. He passed away in 2013 at 75 years of age. On January 25th, 1959, the group arrived by train at Ivdel.
JVA, I do think that is actually an element of the story to some extent, at least when it comes to speculation. Right, JT?
Yeah, there was maybe some involvement between one of the. They previously to this journey, two of them were in a relationship that they since broke up, but they remained close friends.
Yeah. All right. Going.
A small town at the center of northern province of Sverdlovsk Oblast in Russia. Welcome, from here, they took a truck to Vizhai, a small lorry village that is the last inhabited settlements in the north. Their goal was to reach Otterten, a mountain located at 10 kilometers north of the site of the incident, in 14 days. During this time...
What's 10 kilometers? Anybody know?
Not a clue.
Dang Lizard, can you help me out?
8 miles or something.
I think it's something like that. Yeah.
1.6 is a mile.
1.6 kilometers?
No, yeah, 1.6 kilometers, I believe, is 1 mile.
Oh, so that's like 16. Okay, so then that's like 16 miles then. Wow. Okay. I don't know that ever really kind of sunk in. That's a lot. Walking in snow. Jesus. Wait. No.
It's the other way.
It's the other way.
It's the other way.
Okay. 6 miles. Got it. I think, whatever. Somebody do the math. I'm not good at this.
Time of the season.
This
trekking route was considered as Category 3, the most difficult. After reaching Vizhai, the skiers purchased the essential supplies. The team started their journey towards Otterten from Vizhai on January 27th. On January 28th, Yuri Yudin turned back due to knee and joint pain that made it impossible for him to continue the hike. The remaining group of 9 people continued their hike. Investigators used the diaries and cameras found at their last campsite to track the group's route up to the day preceding the incident.
Okay, diaries and cameras are interesting to me because that means that it was a lengthy trip. I could never find out exactly. Okay, here we go. 1.6 kilometers equals 1 mile. Okay, so then, okay, it's right. It's the other way. So it was like around 6-ish miles. Got it.
That's what I said.
Yeah, I know you did, but I did the math wrong. When I did the math, I said it was 16 miles, and you said Yeah, Luigi, you're right. You're always right.
No, I didn't say anything. I kept my mouth shut on that because I knew you were wrong, but I didn't want to say it.
Well, you could have corrected me. You had your chance and you blew it. Okay, so tell me though, do you know off the top of your head how many days were they out there traveling, or how many days was this expected to last? I never found anything like that.
It said earlier it was supposed to last 14 days.
14? Oh man, I missed
You
that.
just said it.
Oh, okay, got it. It's supposed to last 14 days.
Yeah,
Man,
give or take a few depending on weather and stuff. But he was right.
see, that's crazy because that leads you to realize how rough this must have been, because 6 miles isn't that far.
Yeah, for
It's
14
not-
days.
Yeah, it's not 6 miles as the crow flies, as they say.
Exactly. It's not six miles of walking down a street. This is so incredibly difficult and is going to, rough terrain and also, obstacles and weather, that it turns what could be like a 6-hour walk into 14 days. That's pretty substantial when you think about the difficulties that must have been facing them for them to give them that long a time as an expectation. Anyway, just trying to put it in context, if any of that makes sense.
The group arrived at that edge of a highland area on January 31st and began preparing for the climb. They stored their excess food and gear on a platform in the forest called Lapaz. On February the 1st, they started to move through the pass. According to their plans, they wanted to get over the pass that day and made camp on the opposite side, but lost their direction and deviated west, up towards the top of Kholat Syakhl due to worsening weather conditions, snowstorms, and decreased visibility. After realizing their mistake, they decided to stop and camp on the slope of the mountain. They set up their camp on the slope of Kholat Syakhl around 5 p.m. Around 6 to 7 p.m., they had their dinner. Something went catastrophically wrong. It was...
Do you think they really ate hot dogs like that video suggested?
Well, I don't want to spoil one of my theories, but I believe they might have had beans that night, and which led into the most ultimate Dutch oven ever, and it caused them all to run out. I don't want to jump ahead, but that is one of my theories.
Sir, you have my attention.
I'm saying, what else? I mean, I don't want to spoil it or anything, but yeah, they all kind of die. But I just as far
Spoiler
as
alert.
Yeah, as far as how they all ended up running out the tent, and my only thing I could think of after all this was the Dutch oven theory. But
Beans.
Continue if you want.
Oh, that's all we could think of was beans.
It was agreed beforehand that once the skiers had returned to Vizhai, Dyatlov would send a telegram to the sports club. The expected date of the...
Hey, I have a question about this. How did they send a telegraph? Do you know?
Yeah, when they finished their hike, they were going to send it back. When they got back to the town.
Wait, I thought he said they did send one.
No, had they made their journey.
Had they made it. Got it. All right.
So that's why the guy who would have received it, he knows like a few days went by and he hasn't heard nothing when it was like the expected return date, which I believe was like the February 10th or 14th. And so he waited a couple days, still nothing, and then he was like, "Oh shit, I think something's wrong." But unfortunately, by then, so much time already went by that it was, it was just basically like a search mission at that point.
Okay, I misunderstood. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Ah, shit, I keep doing that.
Their return was determined to be no later than February 12th, but Dyatlov had told Urin that due to the difficulty of the trek, he expected it to take longer, so no immediate reaction was taken as days passed on and no message received from them. After the relatives of skiers demanded answers, the head of the university ordered a rescue operation consisting of volunteer students and teachers. On February 20th, Army and police also became involved, and planes and helicopters also joined the rescue operation. On the morning of February 26, rescuers found their abandoned and badly damaged tents on Kholat Syakhl.
Okay, so just to summarize, they were expected around February 12th, and it is now 2 weeks after that. So they have actually been in the snow for a month. Is that correct? That's correct, right?
About
All right.
2.5 weeks. Or
No.
it was less than a month. I know that, I think.
Well, okay. So maybe a little less than a month because they started in January. They were expected to be 14 days, arriving on February 12th. So
How
that,
far-
that
How far did they get into the trip, though?
yeah, well, we don't. Well, okay, we'll figure that out. But I'm just saying they've been sitting in the snow since January and now February 26th. So it's like been 28 days.
Yeah, I think all the people knew that they were probably dead.
No. I get it. I'm saying they are dead. They ate their beans and they died. I'm just saying, how long have they been sitting in the snow? It's been a month.
All right,
Correct?
you just answered yourself.
Well, I'm just getting a confirmation because I'm not good at math. I feel like we've established that.
I don't appreciate this attitude, man. I know
I'm asking you to.
day.
I'm asking you to agree with me.
I agree.
Thank you, Corndiff. I'm not good at math. It's really me asking for, am I right? Am I right about that? My math is not good. All right.
The rescuer who found the tent said that the tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty, and all the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind. Investigators said that the tent had been cut open from the inside, and skiers had fled in socks or barefoot. Investigators found a chain of 8 or 9 sets of footprints left by several people who were wearing socks, a single shoe, or barefoot, going down the hill toward the edge of nearby woods on the opposite side of the pass. But after 500 meters, these footprints were covered with snow.
Can someone do a 500 meters in American talk?
Just over half a mile.
Over half a mile. Got it.
At the edge of the forest,
No,
under
quarter
a large
mile. Just over a quarter of a mile.
0.31 miles.
Got it. It's not very far at all.
old cedar tree, rescuers found the remains of a fire along with the first 2 bodies of Yuri Krivoshenko and Yuri Doroshenko. They both were not wearing
any. Is from the tent to the tree is actually 1.7 it's almost a mile. It was only 500 meters from the time their tracks in the snow disappeared, but from the tent to the tree, I believe they say it's like 1.7, or it comes to like just over 3/4 of a mile.
From the tent, you said.
Yeah, so just imagine that, like they didn't just like your house is on fire, you're gonna run outside, maybe go like 10 feet away, you know what I mean? But no, these guys like left the tent and for some reason continued for almost a mile downhill in the freezing snow at dark for some unknown reason.
Seems like a bad idea.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of also where a lot of the conspiracy theories come from, because that suggests that they were trying to run from something, you know?
But their tracks in the snow that they were able to see showed them not running, but just walking.
Yeah. But the distance has led kooks to say that they were scared of something and they were trying to escape it. But yes, you're right. But yeah, it turns out they were walking. They weren't even running. And there were no other footprints other than theirs. I'm right about that, right?
Yes.
Okay. That was not me being hostile. That was me asking you to confirm my question.
All right, man. I don't want to hear about your day, okay?
Look at this. Hamhead. He's a smart guy. He says you're very hostile today. I love you, JT.
Hit like.
Hit play.
It's polite to say it back.
Yeah.
Any footwear, and were dressed only in their underpants. The branches on the cedar tree were broken up to the height of 5 meters. Forensic tests conducted on the bark of the tree had traces of their skin embedded in it. Medical examiner also reported that the bodies had livor mortis on the front. If a body had been pressed against the ground, normally, these marks appear on the sides. This suggested that their bodies had been turned over after their death. Next morning,
he said a word there I don't know. I know rigor mortis. What is livor mortis?
I thought I misheard that. Yeah, what the fuck is that?
It's where like the blood will pool for like a cadaver. If you've been laying on your back dead, your blood will pool to the bottom. So when they flip you over, your back will be all purple because that's where all the blood settled. So they're talking about there was a lot of the blood settling like up front in their torso.
Okay.
Got it. Cool.
How the fuck do you know that? Why do you know that?
I'm not going to dox myself.
JT was the inspiration for Doogie Howser. You heard it here first, folks.
Knew it.
I'm not
On
gay.
February 27th, rescuers also found the bodies of group leader Igor Dyatlov and Zina
Doogie Howser was a great
Kolmogorova
show.
at a distance of around 300 and 630 meters respectively between the cedar tree and their tent. After searching for 6 days, they also found body of Rustem Slobodin on March 5th at a distance of 480 meters from the cedar. From the state of their bodies and poses, investigators determined that they were trying to return to their tent. Autopsy report found no deadly injuries, and it was concluded that they had died of hypothermia. Rustem had a small fracture in his skull, but it was not considered as a fatal wound. A proper investigation was started as soon as the first 5 bodies were discovered, but the search for remaining 4 bodies took investigators more than 2 months. On May 5th, body of these 4 skiers were also found in a ravine at a distance of 75 meters further down into the woods from the cedar tree under 4 meters of snow. These 4
I tried my best, actually, JT, to not watch this because I wanted to be surprised. This is really good. I've not found anything else that showed it like this, where it showed where their bodies were placed. That's really crazy when you see it like in the context of all of this. That's really interesting.
Yeah, this was the video I've been trying to get you to watch. You kept sending me all this other junk.
Because it was long. It was very long, and
I cut it down.
As soon as you said I'm going to cut this down, I was like, okay, now I'm on board. And then I was like, well, I still don't want to watch it. I wanted to be surprised at that point. But yes, this is great. This is really good.
Hope your channel doesn't get taken down playing this, by the way.
There's going to be an ass in here, isn't there? It's going to be Stut Joe's ass, isn't it?
4 bodies were better dressed than the others, and it appeared that they were wearing clothes from their team members who had died earlier. Bodies of 3 of the skiers had fatal injuries. Nikolai had suffered major skull damage, and bodies of both Lyudmila's and Semyon's had major chest fractures. According to the medical examiner, Dr. Boris Vorshrutsdeny, the force required to cause such injuries would be extremely high. He compared their injuries to the injuries suffered in a fatal car crash. Most important point here was that they had no external wounds, as if they were crippled by a high level of pressure, dug out in a den in the snow, and laid branches of trees in it to keep themselves warm. Here, things got even more strange, as their actual...
All right, so before we get into the more strange shit, let's just talk about that a little bit. Like, that is probably an insane thing to behold if you were to, be the one to catch it. As a doctor, I mean, they have these horrific internal injuries, but nothing exterior to the body. It's pretty weird. It's pretty odd.
It's like a polar bear sat on them.
Yes. Or maybe, or someone like hit him with a bag of oranges or something.
That'll do it.
Yeah. Just didn't leave any bruises. That's weird. That is pretty odd. And I have to say that, like, I hear that shit and I'm just like, man, I can't even speculate on an answer. That's pretty weird.
Imagine 9 people in a tent after a night of beans. I mean, that's some explosive, powerful gas hitting them in their chest. And that'll knock the shit out of you.
You don't have to tell me.
I mean, that's my theory. I'm sticking to it.
I know. And I think it's probably a good point to play this one, because we have a big dramatic reveal, and a combination of that with JT's theory is this big dramatic reveal music. There you go. That's for you, Hamhead.
Bodies were discovered at a distance of few feet from their den in the deepest part of the ravine. Some of their clothing items were found to be radioactive, and some of the clothes that they took from bodies underneath the cedar tree were just placed on the branches. The skiers could not...
All right. Some of the bodies I don't know if he said the number, but we do know the number. The number was 2. 2 of the bodies were radioactive. That is the part that totally like roped me in. I was kidding, JT. I did watch this video, but yes, the radioactivity thing, like when you compound that with all of the other shit, you know, no physical injuries or no external injuries, and radioactive bodies, my mind started racing.
Bears can't do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it turns out there's a very reasonable, logical explanation for it. But when you just throw that in the mix without knowing the context or the history or anything like that, the first time I heard this story, I was blown away. I was like, wow, that is really fucking crazy. But yeah, it turns out it's not that crazy when we hear what happens. But yeah, that was the one that roped me in, where I really got intrigued, was the radioactivity.
Not get a chance to use these clothing items. Yuri Doroshenko. Yuri was the most sturdy and tallest member of the group. His complexion had changed into brown-purple. He was wearing...
They gave him quite the package, too. Look at that.
Wearing a set of wool socks on both feet. And
wouldn't you agree, JT?
Had no shoes on.
It was Russia back in the 50s, so I mean, I think everybody was packing heat. You saw Rocky IV. Don't act like you think that Russians were packed. All right. Continue.
Did they show Ivan Drago's package in Rocky IV?
Yeah, they didn't have to. I mean,
I mean, I could imagine.
Socks on left foot were burned. Liver mortar spots on his body were found at the back of neck, torso, and extremities, but his body was found in a different position, which indicated that his body had been moved once the blood had stopped circulating. His ears, nose, and lips were covered with blood, and his body was still trying to fight the freezing at the time of death. On his right cheek,
in America, Yeti eat you. In Russia, you eat Yeti. What a country.
was found a foamy gray fluid.
Does no one get that joke?
Or the final autopsy report
shit.
that stated his cause of death as
I didn't mean to leave that in
hypothermia.
there. Sorry.
Yuri Krivonishenko. Rescuers found body of Yuri underneath the cedar tree. He was dressed in a undershirt, long-sleeved checkered shirt, swimming pants, long underpants, and torn sock on his left foot. He was not wearing any footwear. The cause of his death was hypothermia. Presence of skin between his teeth indicated that in order to stay on the tree for as long as possible.
Hold on. I know we're gonna hear the end of that. Skin in teeth. That's a pretty impactful sentence there.
He bit his own hand in an effort to awaken his irresponsive hands, or he was trying to stifle a cry. Both Doroshenko.
He bit his own hand so hard that there was skin in his teeth. That's pretty gruesome. It's pretty gruesome. But, you know, you think that your hand's going numb because of cold. I could see you not having any other recourse and just trying to check and see if it's okay, or bring it back to life, or make it bleed or something like that. That is, that's rough. That's crazy.
And Krivonishenko froze to death. After their death, in order to keep themselves warm, their clothes were removed by their friends. Igor Dyatlov. Dyatlov's body was found face up.
Farted and you gotta like immediately like cover your face, and you're like,
start again. What did you say?
I said, you ever like been near somebody that farted and it smells really bad? You gotta like, you know, put your hand over your face. He probably, because of the beans, he probably had to cover his nose and mouth so hard that it caused him to bite his hand. That's what happened.
I've check out, yeah.
I have made people cover their face when I farted around them.
Yeah.
When I was in college, I used to love rolling up all the windows and turning on the heater and then farting to piss my friends off. So yeah, I know what you mean. And then he said, but they say that it could be like either to activate the hand, you know, like to try to like make sure that it's still okay, or to stifle a scream. That's really fucking dark. Like imagine like
I think he was taking a little liberty there in his writing.
I agree with you, but still, it's just a dark thing to say. It's like he was so scared of something he stifled a scream he bit a chunk out of his own hand. That's that's pretty nutty.
Just another day in Russia.
Another day in Russia. We need to do an episode on the Mothman. I'm actually a big fan of the Mothman. Not that I believe in it, but I just love the concept of talking about the Mothman. And there was that awesome movie where a half insect man was making prank phone calls, and that was the whole movie. And they never even show the Mothman. But anyway, when I think of something that you could see that would make you want to stifle your scream and bite your own hand, I think he saw the Mothman.
His head towards the tent. Only his clenched fists were visible above the snow. His unbuttoned jacket was unusual for somebody who was freezing to death. His
I love a good hard-boiled egg.
complexion was described as bluish red, and he also had dried blood on his lips. The knuckles on his right hand had brown-red bruises. Such injuries common in hand-to-hand fights. There were no internal injuries, and cause of his death was also stated as hypothermia. He was also not wearing any footwear, but had one cotton sock on his left foot and one woolen sock on his right foot. The watch on his wrist had stopped working at 5:31. Zenaida Kolmogorova. Body of Zena was found at a distance of 630 meters from the cedar tree, facing down and heading towards the tent. Her skin complexion was described as purple-red. She was much better dressed than the bodies found under the cedar tree. She was wearing 2 hats, long-sleeve undershirt, sweater, checkered shirt, and another sweater with torn cuff off the right sleeve.
Representing the Bloods. So, with some of these, it's an interesting thing. I thought, and maybe we haven't got to it yet, some of them were naked, or at least had less clothes on. This jumps to the conclusion that they were already dead, and that their clothes were stolen. But one theory that I heard that discussed this was, I'm blanking on the name. I'm trying to think of it. I don't know why I can't. But when you, apparently it's a scientific fact, medical fact, that when you're freezing and you're
paradoxical undressing.
The what?
Paradoxical undressing.
Paradoxical undressing. Yes, exactly. That when you are on the verge of hypothermia and your body is freezing, it somehow convinces your brain that you are hot. And that was so bizarre to hear, that like something about the nerves going dead, that they default to heat and your brain is convinced that you are hot. So while you are freezing, you start stripping your clothes off because you can't stand the heat and you're sweating. That's that's so bizarre and weird, but apparently it's a medical fact. But it's interesting that this one, instead of even entertaining that theory as some other videos that we watched did, this one just says, no, that's not even in the picture. They just had their clothes stolen. So that's interesting. I like that they're kind of like skipping over some of the more nonsensical things, or just, trying to stick to objective facts. I think that's pretty good. But also, to some extent, I want some of the nonsense explored for the show.
It was not clear if she had cut it, or it was torn by another person. She was also not wearing any shoes.
Thank you.
Cause of her death was also noted as hypothermia.
Became a member.
Her autopsy revealed that she was not sexually active at the time of her death. This fact...
What does that mean, at the time of your death? Who's sexually active at the time of their death?
Didn't freeze during sex.
I think they meant that during this hiking trip, the ladies weren't getting it on, if you know what I'm saying.
But why would that be important? That's an odd thing to say.
Well, if your theory is that, they were like the Russian military found them and like beat them up, like these women weren't assaulted by anybody.
Okay. I did hear that, and that's an interesting thing. They just didn't put that in the context of this. Okay. All right. Well, that does make sense. I guess we're going to get to that later. Tim422, thank you for the $2. Out fucking standing show. Hey, man, thank you very much. I'm glad that there's just a couple of people out there that like this. I love doing this. Thank you so much for the compliments. It means more than you know. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Let's see. Dang Lizard, your skin can't easily differentiate between extreme hot or cold without context. Huh. What do you mean by context? Now I'm curious. Dang Lizard, you don't have to dox yourself, but are you seem to always have very good scientific explanations. Are you in the science world? You don't have to tell me anything, but just curious. All right. Okay. So yes, her vagina was not being used when she died. That's what they said.
It is only relative to assess the nature of the relationship between Zenaida and Igor Dyatlov. And if escaped prisoners were to blame for the crime, it's doubtful that they would have left the girls alone. Rustem Slobodin. Rustem's body was found 480 meters from the cedar on March 5th. His body was covered under 50 centimeters of snow. His face was down, and he was also heading towards the tent. He wore a long-sleeve undershirt, shirt, sweater.
What's that in inches? Somebody out there knows. Dang Lizard. 50 centimeters.
50, about like almost about 1 foot, 1 and 3 quarters.
19 inches of snow. Jesus.
2 pairs of pants, 4 pairs of socks, and 1 felt boot on his right foot. His watch stopped working at 8:45 a.m. According to his autopsy report, the fracture on his skull could also be the result of being hit with some blunt object. It also stated that after the initial blow to his head, he could have also suffered a possible loss of coordination, which might have sped up his death from hypothermia. However, medical examiner drew this conclusion very carefully, and all of the bruises and scratches on his body were blamed on his last-minute agony. Although it did state that how he managed to harm his exterior hands and legs was beyond explanation, because when a person normally falls, it is usually the palm.
I got a little lost in that. What are they saying? Does anybody else help me with that one? About his last minutes, meaning that they're saying that that all of those injuries were just very sudden? Is that what that means?
I'm not sure how he meant it.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I'm not sure I meant that. Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't alone there.
Palms that suffer the most damage of the fall, as well as medial aspects of the legs. Bilateral injuries to the head.
JT, are you like afraid to answer because you think I'm tricking you or I'm trying to fuck with you? Sometimes I'm just being sincere. You don't have to be worried. I honestly just didn't understand what he was saying there. If you know, I'd love to hear your answer.
Head are less common. His body was on an icy bed, which formed from the hardening of the thawing snow. This means that his body fell when it was relatively warm, and there was a noticeable heat exchange into the surroundings. The remaining 4 bodies of the hikers were not discovered for the next 2 months. When the snow started melting in May, a Mansi native named Kirikov with his dog.
Wait. 2 months? I thought we established they were found. I thought that we established they were found after 1 month.
No, only half of them were found.
Half of them were found after a month. Got it. Okay, so the other half were not found for another 2 months. Jesus.
It's Russia, man. I keep telling you that.
I get it, but it's still brutal.
It's normal to them. What's brutal for us is normal for them.
Brutal. They are the brutalest of the brutal. You know, it's funny. I actually knew a woman. This is a very true story. I'm not joking about this at all. I worked with a woman who was 20. I believe she was 27 years old, somewhere around there. And she was from Russia, had a very thick Russian accent. She was beautiful, and had a very medically altered body. Worked in an office. She had big, huge fake tits, as I'm saying. And she she obviously had like some facial surgery done too. But she was so young, and it was just bizarre and weird. But anyway, she was a perfectly nice woman. And at some point, we had lunch in a group. I think she was like a receptionist or something. And we had lunch in a group, and she, out of nowhere, I mean, honestly, I think someone just asked, hey, so how'd you make it to America? And with no hesitation whatsoever, she says, well, I met this man in a chat group when I was 15. I lived on a farm in Russia, and this guy was 37 years old, and he bought a ticket to Russia and asked my family if he could take me back to America and marry me.
Wow.
And all of us are stunned. We were like, are you serious? And she goes, yep. And we were like, so you were 15 when you married this 37-year-old man? She's like, uh-huh. And none of us could like get over it. We were like looking at each other like, oh my God, this is an awful story. And she did not even recognize that anything was weird.
Was she still married to him when she told you this?
Yes, she was. She was still married to him. And it was almost like a look what I got out of it. I got these big fake tits. I got all this plastic surgery. I'm not living at a farm anymore, and I've got a nice job. You know, like it was like her telling us, like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it because I'm doing great. You know? And when you say brutal, it's funny because that's the first thing that comes to my mind because we were all so stunned at this horrific story, and she couldn't have found anything odd about it. She was like, what? Like, just kept eating. All of us are staring at one another. And, yeah, but what is funny is that, like, within a year, she left him of us bringing it up. But at the time, she just didn't see anything weird. Didn't see anything weird at all about it. Anyway, so, yes, brutal Russia. Parents selling their children to have better lives.
Noticed some branches that were laid down in the form of a trail.
Dowry.
Following these branches,
I think you're right. I think that is what it is. Something like that, yeah.
at a distance of 50 meters from Cedar Tree, he found black cotton sweatpants and left half of a woman's light brown wool sweater. This sweater belonged to Lyudmila Dubinina. Lyudmila wore 2 sweaters and 2 long-sleeve shirts. The brown sweater she was wearing belonged to Yuri Krivonoshenko, and later found.
Some Russian women seem to be born looking like grandmothers.
There's an interesting story about this woman here that I cut out, but now that you talk about how brutal Russia was, she was on a previous hike. And
I know the story. But yes, please tell it. Please tell it.
She accidentally got shot by another hiker. It was just an accident, and she managed to finish the hike with the bullet I believe the rounds were still in her leg as she finished the hike.
The way I heard it was she didn't want to bother the other hikers.
Yeah.
So she just kept hiking.
That's the kind of people these are. I mean,
that's brutal. That is brutal. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Normal day. That's a normal hike in Russia.
A hike through, these, I don't know what you call them, deadly obstacles, and now having to do it with a bullet in your leg. And her reasoning was, I didn't want to be a bother. Yeah, brutal.
To be radioactive. She was laying on a natural ledge with water flowing over her open mouth. There were claims in the media that her tongue was ripped or eaten by something, but her autopsy report simply mentions that the tongue is missing, along with hypoglossal muscle and the muscles.
I think that's a perfectly logical, reasonable leap to take. If you say it's missing, that it got ripped out, I don't find anything wrong with that. It's missing a tongue. The heavy lifting or the lead on that story is that the tongue is gone. But that's just me.
Of the floor of the mouth. It's a bit strange that her autopsy isn't that detailed like the others, and there are no further explanations on this statement. Although it mentions that around 100 grams of dark brown mucosal mass was found in her stomach. This is often quoted as coagulated blood and is used by some as an indication that the heart was beating and the blood was flowing when the tongue was removed from the mouth. Her cause of death was...
Okay, so that's an odd one that I guess I'd probably want like Dr. Steve on here to explain. They're saying that it got reported that there was a mass in her stomach of some liquid. It got misreported as being blood, but they're saying no, it was mucus. Is that indicative of something? I don't know why that would. They both seem odd to me.
She was swallowing the. It's as if her tongue was pulled or gone.
I mean, she was still alive.
Yeah, and she was just swallowing blood and mucus.
It wasn't like she died and then a bear came off and ate her tongue. She lost her tongue and probably screamed while losing it.
Oh, okay. They did not draw that conclusion. I did not realize that's what that meant. That is horrific and brutal.
And brutal. Hit like.
Care to add anything, JT?
No.
Stated as hemorrhage in to
What?
right.
What was that?
I said I'm just waiting for you to keep finishing the video.
Well, I have to comment on it. Can't just
Yeah,
play
I
it.
know, but I'm saying like it's all right, man.
What was that?
I said all right,
Atrium
man.
of the heart, multiple fractured ribs, and internal bleeding. Medical examination also showed that she was not sexually active at the time of death. This was only stated because whoever did the crime did not sexually assault the girls. Semyon Zolotaryov. Semyon was wearing 2 hats, scarf, 2 shirts, a sweater, and a coat when his body was found. It was clear that he did not die of cold in that den. His lower body was also protected with a pair of socks and a pair of warm leather handmade shoes known as burqa.
It's an odd thing to say. Instead of saying his feet were protected, his lower body was protected by socks. Does that mean he was like doing the Red Hot Chili Peppers thing with the socks?
Big ass socks.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird. His lower body was protected by socks.
These were enough for keeping him alive. Additionally, he also had camera around his neck, and this camera came as complete surprise to the Yuri Yudin. As per his knowledge, Team had only 4 cameras, and now a 5th camera had turned up on the body. Unfortunately, melting water had damaged the film, but still, this question lingered as to why he left the tents with a camera, and why did he take 2 cameras to the trip. One camera was used on a daily basis, and everybody saw it, and it was found in the tent, but the other one was only found after his death. The question remains that what did he capture on the slope of the mountain that day? He was also holding a pen and small notepad in his hands. One of the rescuers recalls that Colonel Ordyurkov grabbed the notepad and looked at it, cursed, and said, "He's written nothing."
It was just drawings of dicks. Look at this, Donna G. Oh, hey, Andy. See ya. I can use some fishing line.
Does that make sense? I think I'm missing some context.
I think so.
I'm with it
wait,
though.
Don,
Are
wait.
you getting braided or monofilament? What type of pound are we talking? I just found out, Donna, they make steel fishing line. Wire.
I was listening to your fishing talk yesterday on your show with Granny. I know nothing about fishing. I mean, I went fishing once in my life. When you were describing the variations of these lures, I felt like you were talking science fiction because I was like, this is so fucking complicated. I thought fishing was supposed to be relaxing. Like it was
once
so
you memorize
complicated.
everything and learn how to do everything. But
And then you started arguing with Granny over whether certain lures do certain things, and I was like,
yeah, he don't
what
know.
the hell? I was like, this is so complicated. Oh, hey, Andy. Thank you, Donna G. You are being very generous tonight. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Dang lizard. He picked up a pen. He picked up a pen. That's my Ray. I don't do a very good Ray. All right.
To this day, he seems to be the only person who had seen this notepad, and it was never filed in evidence or seen by anyone else. Alexander Kolevatov. Body of Alexander was well insulated. He was protected by 2 shirts, 2 sweaters, and ski jacket, which was unbuttoned and unzipped.
With no
This was
pants.
again a strange finding for a person who had supposedly died of cold and
Wait,
hypothermia.
was he really not wearing pants?
The waistband of
I
his
don't know, they
sweater
haven't
and
said
lower
his
parts
pants
of his
yet.
trousers were later
Oh,
tested
there you go.
radioactive.
Okay.
His autopsy report was all
He had radioactive crotch. You can see there.
It happened.
Yeah, so this is actually a pretty fascinating part of this story. And it's funny, for years I was like, man, how they explain that? That's crazy. And then you hear the explanation, you're like, ah, shit, I feel stupid.
What's the explanation?
We'll get to it. But it's not that exciting. It's kind of anticlimactic.
Well, let
But
me
this is
enjoy it.
but it's luring though, right? Like
Yeah.
this catches your interest. You're like, these two people out in the middle of the snow have radioactive clothes? That's fucking crazy.
I'm guessing they were fucking.
Yep. Look at that. He had a radioactive cock, apparently, according to this diagram here.
Yeah, they never did release in the autopsy if any of the men were sexually active.
Oh.
We just assume they are.
Uh-oh.
Wait, no. It's Russia.
That's right.
They're not allowed to touch other men's buttholes, even the doctors. That's gay.
In the mountains. Everything stays in the mountains.
That's
It was
not
one-
brutal.
It was one tent for 9 people. All right, just
Oh,
think
yeah.
about that.
They were getting it. Somebody was
I don't think I ever really thought about that.
like a boot stuck in
That
mud.
is nuts. Like, in the 50s, like, you know, like we've come a long way when it comes to like fabrics and technology of keeping people warm, you know, North Face and Gore-Tex and all that bullshit. I mean, it was probably the equivalent of like a windbreaker, the tent, you know, and 9 people huddled up inside of it. God,
Shit, it was back then. It was probably asbestos lined.
asbestos.
It was probably pretty snug if they, depending on what
God.
they used.
And these people did this for fun. This sounds awful. This sounds terrible. All right. Are you a hiker, JT?
I've been known to dabble in hiking.
Yeah. Do you ever go hiking and think that you're in the Ural Mountains in
No,
Russia in the 1950s?
Where I live during the winter, it gets pretty brutal up here. So I kind of relate to a lot of this story and stuff, but I think that's more for like the theories later on.
Do you go hiking and say, I'm a Yeti?
No.
Does that around
okay.
campgrounds.
It's
Runs
okay.
around.
You can admit it here.
I'm not giving you anything on that one, man. I'm like,
When you're fucking a guy in the ass, do you say, I'm a Yeti? It's a yes or no question. I have all night.
it's your show, man.
also silent on the nature of his injuries. His nose was broken, and he had a deformed neck, along with an open wound behind his ear, which could be the
Spine
result of a
separated?
fight. Nikolai Thibault Brino. Body of Nikolai was well protected against coldness of Siberian winter, as he and Semyon might have been outside of the tent when this mysterious threat struck them. This explains why both of them were wearing hiker shoes and several layers of clothes, and were much better dressed when they were forced to abandon their tent. He was wearing woolen hats, 2 shirts, wool sweaters, and a fur jacket along with woolen gloves. And he was wearing woolen socks along with a pair of felt Valenki boots, which are perfect for Siberian winter. Cadaveric spots were discovered on the back of his upper body and upper extremities. He had
What kind of spots? What did he say? Cadaver,
Cadaveric.
meaning like cadaver? What does that mean? Anybody?
I'm having to look it up. I have no idea.
Cadaveric.
Cadaveric spots, also known as liver mortis.
Ah, okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Like those blood pools.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
had a deep, depressed, multi-splintered fracture. Medical examiner excluded an accidental fall on the rock as a possible cause for such a massive and unusual fracture.
Wouldn't it be funny if we came to the conclusion they all befell accidents? One fell, hit his head, another one fell, hit her head. Sounds like Pretty much
Like
sounds
the
like the
Three
plot
Stooges?
of a Three Stooges movie. I was going to say, then they had a pie fight.
stated that, "I don't believe these injuries could have been the result of Nikolai simply falling from the level of his own heights. For example, falling and hitting his head. This kind of injury could have only occurred if he had been thrown into the air and hit his head against the rocks. Lack of damage to the soft tissue showed that he could not have been hit by a rock in someone's hand. After this severe concussion, he could not have been able to move and could only be carried or dragged and might have shown signs of life for 2 to 3 hours. Now, let's analyze few of the most important aspects of this case, starting from the tent.
That's a good
The
reference.
tent is the most important piece of evidence in the chain of events. This is where the
Okay, so this one is pretty fascinating, and this is like one of the most interesting parts of this story. And I really actually never really got the significance of it until like someone pointed it out, that when they arrive, this is what they found. Okay, so sorry, just to add a little bit of extra emphasis on this, that this is really, really interesting.
tragedy started to unravel. The sides of the tent were cut from inside, and hikers chose to exit.
Okay, I totally fucked that one up. That's not what I thought it was. But the thing is, their skis were still standing. And like the post they had made for the tent was still standing. So all of this shit that happened to them, what am I trying to say here? It by definition eliminated to some people's minds that this was an avalanche, because an avalanche would have knocked those things over. Am I right about that, GT? Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
Okay.
an avalanche would have. Yeah, that it would have looked. It would the tent area would not have looked what it did there.
Right. It wouldn't have still looked erected, upright.
Yeah. Plus, when that picture was taken, this was almost like a month after they died. So
A minimum of a month after. Yeah.
and everything is still standing.
Yes. And that made people disregard the possibility that this was an avalanche, because they're like, well, no, the way we know avalanches, it would have crushed all that shit and rolled it down the hill. There's no way this would be here, they would be there if this was an avalanche. If I'm saying this wrong, please correct me, but I think that's what the point was. And that also was another thing that I was like, oh, fuck, how do you explain that? That's crazy. Okay, here we go.
To the tent through sides while completely ignoring the entrance of the tent. At that time, it was only thought that during the night, someone surprised and attacked the hikers after cutting the tent. One of the investigators, while recalling the incident, stated that major breakthrough in the case was made by accident, when a woman who was called to repair his uniform.
Good Lord.
Would.
Jeez. Brutal Russia.
Took
She's
one look
only
at the
40.
tent
I was going to say, she's 26 years old.
and with confidence said that the tent was cut from inside. Later, forensic analysts confirmed that the tent was indeed cut from inside.
Chunksta gifted 1 Luigi Greenberg membership. Thank you very much, Chunksta. Thank you for being here. Chunksta, Hellraiser 69 was gifted that membership by Chunksta. Thank you very much. Appreciate you, sir. And another one. Thank you. Another gifted Luigi Greenberg membership. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate. Oh my God. Oh
man.
And another gifted Luigi Greenberg
Paperwork
membership.
on this is going to be ridiculous.
I have to report this to the IRS, sir. This is too much. At a theater near me, yes. Got a gifted membership. Awesome. And Dylan from somewhere, who hopefully will be a guest, a special guest soon. I have talked to him. Awesome. He has said that he wanted to pick the right show because he's a little bit of a believer in some of this, but not all of it. So let's see what he has to say when he gets here. Dylan is a cool guy. I like Dylan. I should actually bring him on here and just have him tell some of his dating stories. He once dated a girl, and on their first date, she shit her pants. That's a pretty great story. He's told it on air a few times. Anyway, let's see. What was I going to say? I was actually about to mention something about the story. And
You're talking about the hot old lady.
That's right, I was. Definitely want to bang the hot old lady. What was I about to say? Fuck, I was really about to say get to something. Shit. All right, well. All right, let's keep moving.
According to the forensic report, campsite consisted of a pad of flattened snow. On the bottom are stacked 8 pairs of skis for tent support and insulation. Tent is stretched on poles and fixed with ropes. At the bottom of the tent, 9 backpacks were discovered with various personal items: jackets, boots, warm fur coats, stove, axes, saw, blankets, food, and cameras. The nature and form of all cuts suggested that they were formed by contact with the canvas inside of the tent with the blade of some weapon, presumably a knife. Some of the cuts from inside didn't make it all the way through. The satirical propaganda leaflet named Evening Otterton was found near the entrance of the camp. It was put together by the hikers on the night of incidents. It just shows that the morale of hikers was high, and they took time to write it. Here is the translation from this leaflet. In recent years, there has been a heated debate about existence of Yeti. According to recent reports, Yeti lives in the northern Ural, near Mount Ortorton. This innocent reference would later give birth to so many of the Yeti theories. The entrance of the tent was in direction of south, while north part was covered with 15 to 20 centimeters of snow. From the density and appearance of the snow, it was concluded that it was formed not due to any avalanche, rather was formed by wind. A pair of their skis were sticking out from the snow. In case of any avalanche, they cannot remain like this.
So you're being like real, JT. There was one tent, only one tent for all 9 of them, right?
Yeah.
That's
And
interesting.
there was a stove, and they were able, when they had it set up, they even had like a stove inside and everything. It was a pretty decent. I mean,
where they cook their beans.
most of.
That is okay. See, in my mind, because
you just can't fathom that 9 people can all lay in a tent like that.
that's 100% it. I am not a hiker. I don't know jack shit about hiking or camping. I'm not an outdoorsy person. Can't fucking stand the outdoors. I think it's stupid that anybody would want to spend time outside when there's air conditioning. That's just me.
The tent itself,
I don't judge.
The tent itself, I think, was about like 10 feet long or so.
Huh.
It was a decent, like, it wasn't like a small, like, they
were probably
comfortably.
cramped.
Yeah,
Well, I mean,
cramped,
but they also weren't they weren't like nuts to butts either, I'm sure.
Right.
But like it had to have been a big structure is my point. Like it wasn't the size of like a 2-person tent. It was a 9-person tent, unless they were stacking each other vertically. You never know.
Well, the way those tents are set up, I think like each person was like carrying like a certain portion of it. So when it comes to set up, a lot of the tent, depending on who was carrying what part, it all kind of linked together and it created like an even bigger tent. You know what I'm saying?
I do not.
Like the tent that they had, it's not like they just roll it out and then pop it up and that's it. The tent, it's basically constructed of like multiple pieces that everybody does their share of lifting and carrying. Like
IKEA furniture. Like there had to be some sort of piece that everyone was carrying some piece of it.
So when it comes time for them to set it up, they all, everything will connect and attach and tie together, so that when you're inside, if you had to run out, I mean, the fastest way would, take a knife to the side and just make a hole. Which is what happened. So it led to even other theories. That's like why they would do that instead of just going out through the ends like a normal person.
Yeah. And it was in, man, it's funny. I researching this and then talking about it is so different, because it's now like making me like put this thing together, and I'm sitting here just thinking, okay, so they cut through it, it's damaged, but it's still in the same place where they left it. Those two things don't make sense in my head. You see what I'm saying?
They had to get out of the tent in a hurry.
Weird.
They didn't go out through the doors at each end because they were still zipped up.
Okay. Okay.
Looks like they were about dealing with about a 13 foot by 6.5 foot. It's saying here that that tent was custom made by combining 2 4-person tents to accommodate all 9
Huh.
people.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah,
so it's,
it linked together.
Yeah.
got it. So, and it's probably a procedural thing where, like, if you're hiking in a big group in terrible conditions, that you don't split up. That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah, because not one person wasn't carrying that entire tent on their back. Like you said, it's like broken up. Like
Yeah.
you sell it, so that way it's one person isn't burdening with carrying this gigantic fucking thing around.
And then one person's carrying a stove, another person's carrying beans.
Yeah.
Got it.
Near the entrance of the tent in the snow was an ice axe and Dyatlov's jacket. It was strange that Dyatlov took off his jacket outside of the tent. On the side of the tent, on top of 10 centimeters of snow, rescuers also found Dyatlov's flashlight in working condition. One of the rescuers said that, "We couldn't understand why the snow under the flashlight was..."
This is going to be a very stupid question. I apologize. But were batteries around in the 50s?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I always kind of thought batteries were like something that came around like the 70s. I have nothing to back that up. It's just something I always thought.
10 centimeters thick, yet there wasn't any on the flashlight itself. As the rescuers did not
In the 50s, batteries were made out of wood.
expect the hikers to be dead at this point, so they did not make any attempts to preserve or record
Yeah, that sums it up, Spurg. As I'm calculating through this, I'm sitting here saying to myself, I'm not trying to draw any kind of conclusion. I'm just trying to make one step to the next, and the step to the next doesn't connect. I'm just like, wait, what? Why is that, and why is this, and why do these two things somehow equal that? I'm getting lost in the story. Anyway,
footprints of people around the
1886 on the batteries thing.
wait, say it again.
1886. Although it does say flashlights weren't introduced until 1899.
There were batteries at the turn of the century?
Well, the flashlight batteries. There were batteries at 1800, but dry cell batteries were 1886.
Man,
It
I
could
am not a historian.
You could go back even farther. People think that the pyramids were some sort of like battery cell or some theory about that
The
too.
resonation chambers and shit. Yeah.
Yeah. What did they charge? Lawnmowers,
Possible. Sand blowers.
sand blowers.
Dyatlov Pass. It
The
is still an
robots.
open discussion as to how many people were really there in the pass on that day. But from testimony of rescuers and available photographs, we can estimate that there were definitely 8 to 9 tracks of footprints left by hikers who were not wearing any.
Yeah, actually, I didn't want to throw that in there, but this is where I thought you guys were going with this. Have y'all ever seen the Baghdad battery? That's what this is referring to.
Yeah.
The thing that where you could put juice in it and it would generate electricity. That's pretty fucking crazy. I've seen it demonstrated anyway.
Footwear. Their footprints left characteristic columns of pressed snow with footprints on top. Members of the group all walked in a single file, with a tall man walking in the back. Overall, it was an organized, uneventful descent. Several trails would deviate from the general direction, but eventually would rejoin the group. There were other footprints also discovered and photographed, but nobody knows if they were left by...
It looks like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Like it looks like where Mad Max would be filmed. I mean, I get that it's
dramatic lighting.
I get that it's snow, but it just looks so inhospitable to human life.
someone else or rescuers themselves. Now, let's take a look at another important aspect of this case: the cedar tree. Bodies of first 2 hikers were found at a distance of 1.5 kilometers from their tents. Looking around the area carefully,
So it was
rescuers
almost
found a
mile.
flat area next to the cedar, and there they found remains of the
I'm sorry, say it again, JT.
It was just shy of a mile away from the tent.
Got it.
So
Pretty
just
good.
imagine that a distance of a mile or 1,600 kilometers. Like that's
In
pretty
this weather.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if the whole trip, how many miles was the whole trip that was supposed to be 14 days?
6.
No.
6.
No, not 6 miles.
Like four-
What? That's what we said earlier.
This whole trip did not take 6 miles.
No. What was the intended trip? Did I get that
Oh.
wrong? That's what I thought you were asking, Corndiff, was the intended trip.
How long was, well, what was, how long? God, I don't know what I'm asking anymore. The trip that was supposed to take 14 days, how many miles
Yes.
was that?
That was supposed to be 6 miles, but just the terrain was so treacherous, it was going to take 14 days.
Yeah, so to do, but this is the terrain that they're on. 14 days, 6 miles, but they were a fucking mile away from these trees. I mean, yeah, that's a pretty good. That's a lot.
That's a sixth. Yeah, that's a sixth of the
days.
14-day journey. Yeah,
That's days away. Yeah.
I didn't even put that together. Wow, that's really good. Interesting. Huh.
Fire. Bodies of hikers were found at a distance of 2-3 meters from this fire. From accounts of multiple rescuers, we see that all of them observed the same facts. One of the rescuers said that next to the bodies was a fire. Nearby were more than 10 small fir tree branches, cut with a finished knife. The lower dry branches, of about 5 centimeters diameter, had been cut from the cedar. Some of these were lying next to the fire. The snow around.
Okay, so that means that they were alive for a while and had the sense and the wherewithal to create a fire. Am I putting that together correctly, JT?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was trampled. Captain Chernyshev stated that it's possible to conclude that other people had since been by the fire. We found various garments next to it rather than on the bodies, but we didn't find any other bodies. The trees near the fire had been cut with knives, but we found no knives with the bodies.
Oh. Beep, 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 beep. Oh.
From now on, you're gonna have to do that if you want me. If you
All
want me to
right,
stop it. What's up?
About your 6 miles thing? That just got me. That was like that did not sound right. But so I looked up the Dyatlov Pass journey was 190 miles long according to the route designed by Igor Dyatlov. So it was 190 miles.
Hold on. They were supposed there. Okay, now that sounds impossible in the other way. They're supposed to do 190 miles in 14 days?
Yeah. That was their that's the route
they go hard
he
in Russia.
designed.
What was? Wait, there was a specific reference to 6 miles earlier.
Yeah, that was that Pacific day.
Oh. You see, Corndiff, I told you.
That's why, because I was thinking, I was like, that doesn't, to me, it just didn't add up. And
No, it didn't at all. But I mean, what I attributed that to was that it was just such treacherous terrain, and that like they were going uphill, and that there were like giant hills they had to get over that were gonna take a long time.
well, it wasn't necessarily. They weren't like climb like a forest, like climbing through like weaving in and out of trees all day and going up and down cliffs.
Well, they had to run from Yetis, obviously.
Well, the path that they took the whole way was kind of clear, but like I said, it was also February and covered in snow, so they had to deal with a lot of that. But it wasn't like I don't want you to think they were like like Stallone in a cliffhanger or something like that.
Well, well, to some extent, that is what I thought, because like I'm sitting here thinking that they're having to stick their feet into 1 to 2 feet of snow, and if you had to try to walk 6 miles in that might take me 2 weeks.
Use snowshoes. Use snowshoes, and they had skis, so they were kind of like cross country skiing almost.
But what if they fell in the snow? Like it was 2 feet deep.
No, the ski they don't. It's not quicksand. They're not gonna. The snow is frozen.
Oh, okay.
The snow at that temperature is frozen. You're not gonna like fall through.
Snow at any temperature is frozen.
But remember, they had skis with them, so that way they could, it was like they weren't necessarily like walking the whole time. They were able to.
Oh, okay.
They were able to cover a lot more land than they would just walking.
Okay. So now we're going to establish this again. It was 100 and how many miles in 14 days?
90.
Okay. I bet this changes again before the end of the show. All
Luigi.
right. Yes.
I'm just curious. How I don't know where you live, but I was just curious about how are the winters?
The winters can be bad. They are not always bad.
Okay, all right.
I get snow. I don't get a lot of snow. I'll say that.
All right, because when you travel and like when you're traveling on snow, like through a distance, like it said, like it's not necessarily like when you walk in, you're like every step's going like a foot down and up and down like that.
I get it. That's American snow. I'm saying on the side of a mountain where the snow is accumulating over years, it might be possible that you're stepping in a foot of snow.
I mean,
Yeah, but you're
for a
gonna
mountain in Russia. There's probably deep snow. I would.
Yeah,
think.
that's what I'm saying. I don't expect to step in a foot of snow on the side of a highway, but on the side of a mountain, maybe in Russia, communist Russia, the coldest of all Russias. Right?
hit play.
I'm a Yeti.
Maslenikov stated that, maybe with the help of others, they had made a pretty good fire with the branches of fir trees, and those branches had been burning for maybe an hour and a half. 8-centimeter branches of cedar had burned through.
Oh, and another thing, has this ever once mentioned how cold it was? I've heard reports that it was somewhere in the neighborhood of -30 to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know if that's ever been mentioned.
That's probably was wind chill. Or I mean,
All right.
well, you know what? How about I'll look it up while you play the video.
Through. The tall cedar tree also held some clues about the events of the night. Captain Chernyshov stated that all the low branches of the cedar within arm's reach were broken completely. One was cut 4 or 5 meters high. They were thick. These types of branches are extremely difficult to break, even if, for instance, you hang on them with the whole weight of your body.
Is anybody else thinking that the investigators were Shaggy and Scooby-Doo? Anybody?
Ad Manicky stated that most of the dry branches up to 5 meters were broken.
Is already?
Beside this, the side of the tree facing the slope and the tent was completely cleared of branches. These were not dry. They were young and were not used. Some of them were just lying on the ground, and the others were hanging on the lower branches of the cedar. It looked as if someone had created a viewing height facing the site from where they came. Now, let's take a look at the den in detail. Until now, the investigators were still considering this incident as freezing to death, although some of the details were raising questions. Doroshenko had pulmonary edema and contusion as a result of blunt trauma. To stifle a cry,
Pulmonary edema. Anybody? Anybody
It's
out there?
bad. It doesn't sound.
Sounds
good.
bad. Sounds very bad. I don't know what it is though.
That's
I'm
just
guessing-
the art.
Yeah, does that mean somebody let me know? I don't want to speculate.
or to stay on the tree, Krivonoshenko in desperation had bitten a piece of his own hand and had third-degree burns that cannot be sustained if one simply falls asleep if still alive. Dyatlov vomiting blood, and Zenaida had baton-shaped bruise on her waist. Rustum's skull trauma could not be attributed to clumsiness or disorientation. Somebody hit him on the head. Also, there were questions of why the knife that was used to cut the branches could not be found. Still, nobody was suspecting of foul play. The bodies found in the den changed the whole course of investigation. On one hand, the hikers showed that they were sane enough to do anything in their power to survive. But on the other hand, it still did not make sense as to why their attempts did not work. The den was made by surviving hikers, and it would provide them good protection against cold winds.
All right, this is a new one. I don't know about this. They're saying they're calling it a den. Does that mean they had to dig this thing into the snow?
That was my assumption. I mean, I've heard of people doing that before.
They could probably use the branches laying around and stuff to like shovel it. And
Well, you could, if the branches had or needles or whatever's on it, they could use that for bedding and then tunnel in and stay warm. And I mean, you can even build a fire in there.
That's interesting. This one is just new to me. I don't remember this in the story. So it definitely leads to the context that they were in their right minds at this point and were trying to survive. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Here
So
again,
if they were being chased by a Yeti, they wouldn't have time to do that.
Yeah, or rushed. Like if they were,
or if
yeah.
the aliens were, the spaceship was overhead, they wouldn't be able to be like, oh, hey guys, hurry up with that tunnel over there. You know what I mean? The aliens are here.
Or hear me out. The aliens helped them dig the tunnel. Or they burned it with their tractor beam right into the snow.
And that's where the radiation came from.
I think we're onto something. Get Russia on the phone. I have somebody to tell.
Again, the theory of paradoxical undressing did not make sense, as hikers laid out cedar branches in the den to avoid contact with cold snow underneath. Lyudmila by that time was wearing radioactive sweater and pants out of Krivonoshenko. However, the case became even more strange when their bodies were discovered. All three members were crushed with immense force, and their bodies were not found in the den, but at a distance a few feet away. Alexander was trying to protect Semyon's body, and Thibault's body was at a distance of 30 centimeters in the downstream. Only Colonel Ordyukov had seen the notepad found on their bodies, and its whereabouts are still unknown. One of the key rescuers, named Vladimir Asgnadze, also stated that he felt strongly about those in charge were not really interested in a proper investigation and already had a theory. The whole operation was rushed, atmosphere was quite tensed, and everyone was waiting for answers, and someone from Moscow was pushing for a speedy investigation. Once the bodies had been taken out of the den, helicopter pilots refused to take the bodies, citing that it was out of their official duties. It has been said that they had already suspected the bodies to be poisoned or radioactive and did not want them on the helicopter.
That's odd.
They're probably just paranoid pilots. Like,
Yeah, and that's third hand. That's third. We don't know that they actually said that. He's saying it was rumored that they said that.
Still, they're military pilots. I mean, you'd think they've seen shit. This probably had to be pretty extreme for them to pass it on it. Or they're just being stickler and they're like, this isn't part of my job description today.
Yeah. I got somewhere to be, man. My weekend plans getting started. Shit, did it again.
The crew further demanded that the bodies be covered in zinc coffins. At this point, Colonel Ordyukov took his pistol and threatened to shoot the crew on sight. Vladimir Asgnadze intervened, and bodies were repacked and finally lifted for the transportation. Now, let's take a look at one more important aspect of this investigation: radioactive contamination. Claims made in the media state that some of the hikers' clothing was found to be highly radioactive. Examinations of these clothes were done by the main radiologist of Sverdlovsk. After rinsing the clothes in a cold running water for 3 hours, the contamination was decreased between 30 and 60%. This contamination could not have been possible under normal circumstances. The normal contamination level of beta particles for 150 centimeters squared is around 5,000 beta particles per minute. Dubinina's brown sweater had a decay rate of 9,900 beta particles per minute. The sweater from Kolevatov had a value of 5,600 beta particles per minute. And the trousers had a contamination level of 5,000 beta particles per minute. The radiologist...
Can you explain all the signs of this radiation, JT?
not exactly, but
But give it a shot. Go ahead.
I could. I mean, they have their body. The clothes did have radiation on, but I'm not sure if the video will explain it. But the two of them did work at the college, like in the or not in a college, but they worked like at like a nuclear facility. So they
They worked at a nuclear facility
of leaking radiation. Like, I don't think it's anything to worry. Like, I don't know.
I actually recently, if anybody's watched the Chernobyl documentary or the miniseries, it's super good. It is really, really good. But what's interesting is I've gone my whole life hearing the term radiation or, whatever, and never really fully understanding. All I knew was bad. Radiation's bad. I never knew what it was. And finally, that kind of inspired me to look it up. What exactly is radiation? And what's interesting about it is that what radiation really is a powerful force of energy in certain materials that expands outward, much like an explosion. And in its path, when it's exploding, it removes the electrons from cells. So when you hear of someone getting radiation poisoning, that means that at the cellular level, their body is decomposing. Did you know that? It's crazy.
Doesn't sound good.
No, it's pretty gross. And that's why their nose starts running, their internal organs liquefy. You are literally, if you get a high dose of radiation poisoning that causes you to die, it means that your body is literally falling apart at the cellular level. You're aging rapidly from an invisible force. Scary. Some scary shit.
Concluded that either the clothes were contaminated from
Like and subscribe, people.
radioactive dust, or they became contaminated by coming in direct contact of radioactive substances. He also stated that the actual level of contamination of some parts of clothes was many times more, and we must also consider the fact that the clothes had been washed in the running water of ravine with differing degrees of intensity. I think the most logical explanation of radioactivity is that these clothing items belonged to Alexander and Krivonoshenko, and both of them had directly worked on nuclear power plants and nuclear fuel enrichment facilities before.
This completely demystifies the conspiracy theories.
And therefore had this contamination from their jobs. This seems to be one of those points which has been overblown in the media, but in reality, I do not find it odd that the only slightly radioactive clothing items belong to the people who were already working for nuclear facilities. Further adds to the mystery of what really happened that night, and therefore, the case of Dyatlov Pass remains an unsolved mystery till this day. Arthur Conan Doyle once said, "When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth."
All right, so we went through all that to explain the facts, the mysteries, the weird, crazy aspects of this story. So not going to be here too much longer. Got about a 10-minute video here to explain some of the stupid theories and also some of the very recent
In the 6 decades since the
scientific
incident,
experiments.
there have been more than 75 theories about the circumstances that led to the deaths of these 9 hikers. Some people blame the Yeti. Besides, the only footprints discovered on the mountain belong to the hikers. Another popular suggestion is that this was all the doing of aliens, partly because there were reports of golden lights in the sky that night, and partly because aliens get blamed for just about everything.
JT won't say this, but he believes it was aliens.
Humans don't have an answer for. At one stage, the leading suspects in the investigation were members of the Mansi tribe, known to be peaceful reindeer herders who generally kept to themselves. It was thought that perhaps
They sell their reindeers to Santa Claus. Right, JT?
Yeah, that's how they get their money to survive throughout the year.
Great job.
the hikers had crossed onto land sacred to the Mansi and paid the ultimate price. But this didn't make sense because others had crossed that land before without trouble, and as you know by now, the only footprints found belonged to the hikers. Also, the coroner confirmed that the injuries sustained by the 4 hikers in the ravine were too severe to have been caused by humans, so it couldn't have been the Mansi. As a result, the investigators cleared the Mansi of culpability. But not all suspicions faded over the years. A book was published in 2015 that reintroduced the sacred land hypothesis, saying the Mansi hunters may have been high on magic mushrooms and lost their mind when the trekking party suddenly strayed onto their land.
Fake
What do you
news.
think?
Fake news.
I was just about to ask you, what do you think about that theory, JT? You don't believe that high on mushroom native I was about to say Native American, Native Russian Russian natives got high on mushrooms and decided to have blood sacrifices with the blood of the hikers? No?
I've been known to dabble in the hallucinogenics, and the last thing you want to do in that state of mind is go out and like create a mass murder. Like, no, that's completely
Speak for yourself.
false. Like, I just want to sit down and not do anything. Like, I can't imagine eating an eighth of shrooms and being like, all right, guys, grab the knives. Like, that's I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
Who feels like killing somebody?
I'm like, no, man, I just want to watch Wizard of Oz or something. You know, I don't really want to.
I just get sleepy. I just want to sleep. That's all I want to do. Anyway, that's me.
The Russian government closed the investigation into the matter only a few weeks after the final bodies were found. With no clear explanation to offer, the authorities simply concluded that the deaths were caused by a spontaneous power of nature, before marking the files classified and locking them away. They may just as well have said, this was the work of naughty unicorns, and if you don't like that answer, please call the KGB. These actions have been cited as examples of generally suspicious behavior by the Russian authorities. That's a new one. And conspiracy theories about a potential cover-up are abound. The local prosecutor, Lev Ivanov, was the first person to investigate the case and led the official inquest in 1959. After initially being extremely focused on the investigation, Ivanov suddenly withdrew his interest and closed the case, apparently under pressure from his superiors. Then, he didn't speak about the event for 30 years, until 1990, when he admitted he'd been silenced by the authorities, forced to suppress reports of fiery objects in the sky and
JT is a naughty unicorn.
strange autopsy results from the victims of the disaster. When those autopsies were done in the nearest town, the medical facility was surrounded by KGB officers, not police, and a large barrel of alcohol was delivered to the premises.
Not a fighter.
Something.
Do you know about this part of the story, JT?
Wait, what? I was.
We're almost done. All right.
As a way for the forensics team to help protect themselves against radiation. Radiation had been found on some of the clothing at the scene in the mountains, and the area was scanned with a Geiger counter to check for radioactive contamination, which is not exactly the usual way to handle a search and rescue mission. This weirdness has spawned rumors that the hikers were victims of secret weapons testing, and that the government hushed everything up to hide.
Now, this goes back to what we said earlier about that one guy. I can't remember all the names. They're all Igor. That the guy who joined late and was like a last minute replacement apparently had a background in working for the KGB.
He was a World War II veteran of Russian army.
Yeah. And apparently had like, so in the East, like in Russia, if you get a tattoo, it actually has like very specific meaning that's supposed to tell your life story if you are like a prisoner or a veteran or something like that. And apparently this guy had the tattoos of somebody important in the world of spies, is how I've heard it described, but who knows? Who knows what that even means? So that's what has led to some of these people saying this shit.
I think he was on this trip not to spy on the hikers, but as part of his training for if he was KGB. They're like, listen, man, we're going to send you to some really shitty places, but there's this group, you know, they were also not the only people on the mountain at that time. Yeah, there was like other groups hiking on that mountain, but obviously nowhere near where they were. So it was a common thing for people to be hiking out there. So he probably joined this group to get certified himself for his government job, of being a spy or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, Gummi Chainsaw. Yes. Fantastic point. Getting a tattoo saying you're a spy isn't very spy-like. Can't argue with that. You can just see James Bond with a 007 tramp stamp. Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's not a very believable part of the story, but it has led people to speculate on the story. One theory I heard was that he was organizing a prisoner swap and that things might have gone bad, or that he killed everybody. I've heard so many different theories. But anyway, all that to just simply say is that you throw in unexplained activities and government officials, you get wackos making claims like this. We are almost done.
Their tracks. The Soviet military was known to be testing parachute mines in the area around that time. These bombs explode in the air, which would explain the balls of fire described by eyewitnesses, and would also explain the injuries suffered by the students. The missing body parts on some of the bodies could then be down to scavenging wild animals. As for the people who were half-dressed, there's an outside chance this was due to paradoxical undressing, a strange phenomenon that occurs when people develop hypothermia. Suddenly they feel incredibly warm and have the need to take their clothes off. Where I come from, we call that something quite different. When the Soviet regime finally collapsed in the 90s, the files belonging to the prosecutor Ivanov and the rest of the establishment were released, sparking a massive surge in interest around the Dyatlov incident. As a result of public pressure and the need to respond to cray-cray conspiracy theories, the Russian government reopened the case in 2019, but was only willing to investigate 3 possible outcomes: an avalanche, a slab avalanche, or a hurricane. Criminal action
I think Yeti should have been on the list.
Was excluded as a possibility because, weather never breaks the law.
Or naughty unicorns.
Though wind speeds on the night in question would have reached hurricane force, the probability of a hurricane causing the incident was eventually ruled out. But there have been some pretty innovative ideas about how wind could have caused a disaster. Katabatic winds, which are winds caused by cold air.
Okay, now, before we get into this one, JT, I think you told me that you do not believe this theory. Is that right?
No, I actually, I read a book that somebody wrote about this incident, and he was a firm believer in this theory of the katabatic winds.
Oh, am I wrong? Okay, so you think it's a possibility? I'm sorry, I might have gotten that wrong.
No, I don't believe it's. I was kind of upset when I got read the book, and I got to the point where the guy, this was his theory, and I was like, he's a moron. But when I bought the book, I fell for it. So,
did you read the book?
Yeah, I read the book. And, I mean, he interviewed Yuri Yudin, the guy who survived. Like, the author went to Russia, and he did the whole trip and everything. And in the end, this is what he thought was what happened. It's a completely insane. I mean, I don't believe it personally.
I just see you reading and going, katabatic winds, and then throwing it over your shoulder.
I was very upset when I got to that.
All right.
Rushing down slopes due to gravity can sometimes reach hurricane speeds, though this is rare. A strong katabatic wind would theoretically have forced the climbers out of their tent and sent them downhill seeking shelter. Another theory is that strong winds moving around the mountain created extremely low-frequency sounds called infrasound, which is known to cause panic attacks in humans.
Anyone ever heard of that? Infrasound causing a panic? I've never heard of that. No. I've heard of sounds. I've heard of sounds making people sick. If you've heard of Havana syndrome, that's a weird one. they're using sound to make people sick, but making people like paranoid and scared with a sound, that sounds really weird. You ever heard of the brown note? Do you know what the brown note is?
Makes you shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, supposedly there's some sort of key on the musical scale that's supposed to make you shit your pants.
It's not the F sharp.
I don't know. I don't know. I always thought it was a theory or an urban legend, like eating Pop Rocks with soda.
Discomfort and distress might have driven the hikers to
Gummi
escape
Chainsaw.
in the
Hey,
dark.
thinking the same thing.
In both scenarios, the rest of the details of the scene are explained away by hypothermia and the last 4 people falling to their death into a ravine.
You know, one thing we haven't considered, JT and Corndiff, is that possibly a rogue group of homosexual CIA agents killed these people. It was in the same time frame as when they killed JFK.
They would have the resources.
They would, and to some extent, there were Russia connections. Hey, I think we're onto something here.
And the women weren't touched, so
The men brutally raped.
maybe that's why they were found outside, all like half dressed and stuff, because they were kind of like in the middle of something. You know,
I think we're onto something.
The tent got a little hot and heavy, and maybe there was an M-hole in the group and decided like he didn't want to involve, so he tried to cut his way out, and then he got himself out the tent. Everyone else kind of followed him. They were like, "Where you going, dude? We need you on the cruise." And so they had to drag his ass. But by then, they're already like a mile away from the tent. So they're like, all right, we'll just start up here. So they sent a couple of guys in the tree to get wood to start the fire. A couple others started the den. They're like, oh, we're going to get this party going any minute now. But by then, they all froze to death. End of story.
That's the best explanation I've heard yet.
You told such an in-depth story with such precision. I think you might have been there.
My past life, maybe.
That voice you did is like, that sounded like when Rocco does an impression of you, and it's really funny.
I didn't do no impression.
Oh, I'm sorry. For anybody who doesn't know what we're talking about, the first mainstream JFK assassination conspiracy theory, not a joke, was that a rogue group of homosexual CIA agents killed John F. Kennedy. It was the basis of the movie JFK.
Well, we didn't know what they were capable of back then.
You didn't, and they thought they were crazy. And literally, we played interviews of people just saying, he's gay. They're out there killing people.
Plus, why would 9 people all decide to use one tent? Like, you mean tell me that there was like 1 or 2 guys that are like, you know what, I'll bring my own tent, all right? It's just a little crowded. But no, they all agreed, one tent, one team, one tent.
Like you in Atlantic City. Rocco offered the bed and you said, no, I'm going to sleep in a chair.
I don't well, that's a different story. Come on, man. That's apples and oranges.
I told you so a little behind the scenes, folks. Rocco told that story on the air, and I told JT I was in that exact situation once where I went traveling with a friend, and we were supposed to have separate beds, but we said we were going to stay in the same room to save money. We were supposed to have separate queen size beds, but when we arrived, there was one king size bed. And my friend did the exact same thing. He's like, dude, just sleep in the bed. It's fine. And he said, we'll put some pillows between us so we don't touch. And I said, I'm going to sleep on the floor. I'm not doing it. It's too weird. So I was totally in your camp, JT. I totally understood what you meant. But
I should have known better, because that one night that weekend, I was outside with Rocco and Patrick was there, and they were mentioning about our room situation. I was like, yeah, but I don't want to make it a big deal. I don't want anybody to find out, that. And those 2 guys were like, no one's going to know, dude. I'm like, all right. So now looking back, I was like, yeah, it's the last 2 people I would count on keeping it a secret.
He couldn't wait. I think he told that story before he even had his own show. I think he told it on a Cardiff show.
Probably, yeah.
But I think it's a perfectly fine story. I was like, I get it. I did the same thing. All right, let's finish this.
In 2020,
I loved your narrative,
Russian
though.
authorities announced the official cause of death to be an avalanche.
Okay, so gets weird. Is, of course, all this whole time we could have said just an avalanche, but this really is kind of captivating to me because I didn't know there were different types of avalanches, and this is interesting. And tell me where you stand on this one, JT.
I don't believe it was an avalanche. I mean, if you look,
okay, no, go on.
No, I don't think an avalanche is what drew them out the tent like that. Because why would they later on decide go back to the tent?
Well, that's kind of what I was hinting at earlier when I was saying, you know, that all the stuff was still there, but they felt the need to get out of it by cutting it open, you know, but it was in the same place. You know, it would make sense, like, yeah, if they were like rolling in water and they were discombobulated, didn't know how to get out, but it was in one place and didn't move.
Yeah, well,
and in my mind, like, if it was surrounded by snow and they saw only one of the walls might not have had snow behind it, that could have been why they would need to cut out of it. But I mean, I don't know.
Plus, if it was an avalanche, it would have been like in immediate danger. They would have like get out, like haul ass, get out of there. But they show that isn't exactly what happened. Like, yeah, they hurried up and all got out the tent, but when it came to like going that almost mile down to the tree, it was like they were like an avalanche was, you know, like Indiana Jones and the rock coming after you. You know, they're like kind of taking their time. I mean, if an avalanche was happening, I don't think that would be it.
But okay, I see what you're saying, but this type of avalanche that they describe does kind of lend itself to explain that, in my opinion. Yeah. All right. Well, let's listen.
This conclusion met a number of criticisms, especially since the report lacked any clear explanation for how the avalanche happened. There were no conventional signs of an avalanche at the scene, and an assessment of the terrain using more advanced technology showed an avalanche to be extremely unlikely. The group had cut their camping site into a slope that didn't seem steep enough to cause an avalanche, and there was no snow on the night of the event, so there couldn't have been more snow weight to trigger a collapse of the slope. The footprints leading away from the tent indicated 9 people walking down the hill, not running in panic, and hikers with their level of experience would have been very unlikely to camp anywhere near the potential path of an avalanche. The climbers' injuries also didn't match up with typical avalanche injuries. Most strangely for an avalanche, though, there was a 9-hour gap between the group cutting into the snow to set up camp and the point at which they escaped the tent. Usually an avalanche would start soon after the snowbank had been disturbed. Recently, though, 2 scientists in Switzerland, Alexander Puzrin and Johann Gum, seem to have solved the puzzle of what happened that dark night in 1959. They used computer software originally developed for the Disney movie Frozen to simulate various possibilities.
Nerds.
It's always going to come back to Disney.
Nerds. Oh.
All right, but listen to what they're going to say. This is interesting. Try not to think of Frozen and stop singing Let It Go. I had to mute you.
Including that it was a rare type of avalanche that had forced the hikers to let it go. They learned that the slope was not actually so shallow after all, and that it was totally possible for a slab of heavy snow to slide down the mountain and land on the tent. The snow slab itself wouldn't have needed to be particularly large, but the weight of the snow could have done serious damage. In the 70s, General Motors ran a range of tests on 100 cadavers to see what happened to the bodies in simulated car crashes. The results were used to design car safety belts, but Puzrin and Gum used the data to understand what would happen when the force from a massive weight landed on a human body. They discovered that when a person is pushed against a rigid structure, the force could create internal injuries similar to those suffered by the hikers that night. The hikers would have been sleeping on their skis, so when the snow slab landed on top of them, it would have crushed them, causing chest fractures and skull fractures that would have badly wounded the climbers, but not immediately killed them. The avalanche would have forced them out of the tent and down the slope, where they would have hoped to be safer from further avalanches. This new study seems to offer a plausible explanation for what first went wrong that night in February 1959, but it can't explain the bizarre events that unfolded afterwards. It doesn't provide an answer for lights in the sky, or radiation on people's clothes, or missing eyebrows. But these questions will probably forever remain shrouded in mystery.
And there you have it, folks. The Dyatlov Pass incident, as explained by Frozen and Disney.
Well, that's not what happened.
Okay. So let's talk about a little bit about that. So why don't you believe that?
Because that's not what I think happened. I think.
Okay.
All right. All kidding and jokes aside, I believe what happened was that night when they were all in a tent, there was a scuffle between a couple people, and they had it. Like, people were freaked out. They were like, "I get outside." So, like, there could have been like a fight going on inside the tent. Two people were like, "All right, let's get the fuck out of here." They cut the thing. They got themselves out the tent. Dyatlov comes out, and he's like, he throws his jacket on the ground. He's like, "All right, who wants to fucking go?" And then one by one, they all kind of were like, "All right, fuck this. Let's just go down to the trees. We'll dig a shelter," like they were doing. And they're like, we'll just hang out here, let these guys, cooler heads prevail in the morning. But, things got a little crazier as the night went on. And I think that's how they all died. And like I said, 4 of them at the end were trying to make their way back to the tent. And I think it just, with the elements and whatever happened that night between all of them, they just couldn't make it back. I know that sounds stupid. It's no stupider than people thinking a Yeti did it, or a fucking big ass avalanche. It's all whatever,
It's possible, though.
It is very possible. What's your theory?
Thoughts?
I don't know. I have no fucking idea what happened.
Oh, get off the fence. Come on.
I don't know. I mean, that's really part of why I struggled with this one, is like, I don't fucking know what happened.
It's not supernatural. It's nothing.
I know that, but at the same time, I still don't have an explanation of the timeline or anything like that.
You put 9 people in a tent like that after, a lot of
eating beans,
after a hard, a lot of, hard, a lot of, they were all tired and worn out, obviously. And maybe, temperature just got too high. And I think that's shit like there was probably like a big grift between like half the group, maybe,
Russians put mayonnaise in a lot of their food.
It just comes down to like human interact.
Mayonnaise makes people angry.
I was trying to be serious and tell you what now you start going off on some mayonnaise shit.
He just said, "What the fuck?"
I mean, the truth is, though, like, we could talk all day, but it just, there's no explanation. We don't know what happened.
Peanut butter ham.
Hey, what? What'd you say?
Mustard yellow.
Peanut butter ham.
What kind of show is this?
Not an intelligent one, but you knew that. I just don't know. I mean, it's interesting, and I'm willing to hear all of the theories. No, of course not. I don't think it's anything supernatural, paranormal. So,
I mean, this human element. It's just, I think that some of those individuals just had like bad blood between the few that developed over their hike, and I think it all culminated to that night. That's my That's my honest opinion of this whole thing.
I think very similarly to that quote that was in your video of Arthur Conan Doyle. He's like, you just got to keep stripping away everything that's improbable.
Yeah, and you're left with human nature.
And that's fair. And that's fair. I'm willing to admit that. But the details of which I don't know. We'll never know. The avalanche thing does make a lot of sense. I really don't know why that's. I don't know why that is so disregarded. I don't know why people shit on that. I mean, that to me makes sense. What Corndiff, please?
Well, you saw the pictures of the tent and the skis and everything when they found it.
But what if, like the video showed the last part, what if they were sleeping on those skis, and what we see them as they're standing up is the aftermath? Huh?
All their skis was in. They were some of the skis they used to help hold the tent up. The rest of the skis they used horizontally to lay on. Yeah. So what's your ski theory then?
No. Okay, listen. He says that they were sleeping on their skis.
Yeah, not all the skis.
I got it. What we found after the fact, after they're dead, were skis planted in the ground. Not all of them, some of them. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, what if, and this is a what if, I'm not saying it is right or wrong, what if those skis were in a horizontal position, and then after the avalanche were put into that vertical position?
No, because
I'm not going to convince you. I'm not going to try, but I'm just telling you.
You're thinking that they purposed like the avalanche. No, the skis were standing up before.
We don't know that.
That's what they used to hold the tent, help mount the tent up. They used a handful of skis standing up to help anchor the tent a little.
Whose skis did they use?
Fuck, I don't know.
That's right. That's my point. We don't know.
Well, it doesn't matter whose ski. It could be anybody's fucking skis. It don't matter.
I get it. That's my point. Is that you're saying they use the skis? I believe you. I believe you, and I believe that it's true. But to say that they're the same skis as were put in the ground to hold up the camps, put up the tent, we don't know.
No, well, yeah. You're not listening to what I'm saying here.
I am. I promise.
I think it's aliens.
No, you're not.
I am. No. I am listening to what you're saying. I am saying that maybe the skis that were vertical were knocked over. The skis that were horizontal were now placed vertical. That's what I'm saying. We don't know that they were the same skis holding up the tent.
Yeah, there were skis that were outside the tent were the ones holding it up. The ones that were in the tent were the ones they were sleeping on. Why the fuck would they be outside?
Well, then that's an element that I haven't heard yet. If they're saying that there were...
They slept...
Oh my God, listen to
we don't
to
know that it wasn't aliens.
We don't know that it wasn't a Bigfoot. Listen, if there were skis that were still horizontal on the interior of the tent, I have not heard that. What we saw was a spread out tent and a few vertical skis. I am simply saying that it is possible that those vertical skis were not the ones that were holding up the tent, but instead were the ones that were horizontal and were now put up because of a massive snowslide. I'm saying it as a possibility. I'm not saying I believe that. I'm not suggesting.
The chance of an avalanche making skis stand upright like that is about 1 trillion to none.
Okay, please cite your source.
History, science, physics. Tell
me where you went to avalanche school.
Will tell you that to have all those skis stand up like that because of what? No, you're out of your mind, dude.
I don't know anything about science. That's what I'm saying. What if? I'm saying what if. I am not suggesting it as I'm not suggesting it as a definitive answer. I am just saying maybe. And maybe that is a sign of an avalanche. I guess, okay, how about this? What if I just say this? I haven't seen enough evidence to eliminate the avalanche theory.
I have. I think I've seen enough to eliminate. Me personally, I don't think it's an avalanche.
You know what, JT? We should go to Russia. We should go to this exact spot and do an on-site investigation. I think it really bring in the viewers.
Mm-hmm. I might have already been pretty close to there at one point in my life.
I'll split the super chats with you.
Keep them.
But you have to pay your own airfare and hotel. And we have to sleep in the same bed.
I'll recreate this journey, man. People do it all the time. I'll do it.
Oh, really? They do? Like they take
you can still do this hike. It's
who the fuck would want to?
Who wouldn't? I mean, if
me,
I would do it just to prove to everyone wrong that all your stupid avalanche theories are. I'll even try to recreate an avalanche myself.
I could see you just walking up and down a mountain with two of those giant marching band cymbals, boom, boom, trying to create an avalanche.
I would love to do that.
I know you would. Yeah, I'm not a fence rider. I'm not anything because nothing about this just makes sense to me. I'm going to sit back and I'm going to say there are things in this world that just can't be explained. This is one of them. There's just no explanation, or at least there's no top to bottom, beginning to end explanation. There's parts of it we can explain. There's nothing that is going to explain the whole story for me.
There's no clear-cut answer, but I think as a skeptic, you could definitely rule out about 99% of these theories.
I'm going to rule out all the paranormal bullshit. I mean, I don't think it was aliens. I don't think it was Yetis.
I don't think it was lights in the sky.
The Mansi people thing, I mean, I don't know enough about those Eskimo people.
No, I don't think they had anything to do with it. I mean, it's...
Yeah, reports are they're very peaceful, so I mean it's definitely out of the ordinary. I wouldn't get it. Supposedly there was a mental institution, there was a prison very close to this, and people have also theorized that maybe a prisoner got loose. But that doesn't make any sense either. And I mean,
they wouldn't be able to survive. I mean, these hikers could barely survive. What makes you think some prison escape is going to last more than 60 minutes out there?
Yeah, it's. I got nothing. So,
all right. My theory is the only theory that matters. I'm going to write.
You heard it here, folks.
I think, just like the stupid book I bought and threw in the trash, I should just write my own theory, and people buy that shit. And
I think you should. You can advertise it here. Do the audiobook.
No one wants to listen to me ramble.
I would totally listen to you ramble. And then Yuri said, "Your mother," and then pulled out a knife.
That's probably what I think happened. I think they got into a little scuffle in the tent, and then people fucking panicked and were like freaked out,
knowing that Igor was sensitive about his weight. Yuri said, "Listen, you fat fuck."
Imagine if you were that 30-year-old veteran, you got this 23-year-old punk trying to tell you how to hike this mountain. You're like
leading the whole hike, and that would be rough.
Well, that's why I think tempers were flying ever since the get-go, and I think.
Okay. So let's actually. Okay, I'm going to entertain this one for a little bit. So, 38-year-old veteran taking instruction from a 23-year-old. You know what, JT, you're actually swaying me a little bit. I can see
Igor Dyatlov had signs of wounds on his knuckles that looked like he was in a fist fight.
I could see a buildup of tension there. Yes. And now remind me also, there was a love triangle. Am I wrong about that?
Yeah, well, the brunette was she dated another one of the male hikers that were on a trip, like maybe a few months prior. But like, you know, they ended things on a good term supposedly. But you know how the heart goes. What does that say? A JT audiobook. Oh man, it was the best of times. It was. Oh, fuck you! Take that off the screen. All right, let's wrap this shit up, man. All right, I think.
Really good.
I'm sorry, Corndiff. This is after all these years. This is the first time me and you were ever on the same show together, and
It's
really?
I'm a long time fan of Corndiff.
Wait, you've been here before? What?
Not with Corndiff.
Oh, that's right. Yes, that's right, Corndiff. When you got sick, JT filled in for you. That's right. I forgot about that.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Corndiff is awesome. We can all agree Corndiff rules.
Okay,
I don't think that anybody here would even criticize Corndiff a little because he's awesome.
I'm tolerated and I understand it.
JT, you know we love you and you're welcome here anytime. What was the other one that you wanted to talk about, which I am also very intrigued by?
The Yuba County Fire.
Yes, that is a good one. That's a really good one, but it's another one where I don't have an opinion.
It's basically the American version of this. There is no clear-cut answer.
That's a weird one, and it involves 5
special men.
Mentally challenged people.
Retards. All right?
I was trying very hard to not say that.
Trump's president, you call them retards. It's fine.
I think he's right. Yeah.
Yes, the Yuba County 5. If you don't know about that one, people, that is a weird one where 5 mentally challenged people took a drive to a basketball game and got lost for years. Was it years or was it months?
No, it was like this. It was they got lost in the winter, were found in the spring.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was a year. I thought for some reason I thought it was 2 years. Okay, so they were found months later, and it's a weird one. It's so fucking weird.
That's the weird one because not all the bodies were found. Which that's the trigger right there. That's the linchpin.
And they had a car. They were driving a car, and they got lost.
Uphill instead of I'm afraid we're gonna get into this whole
let's give it up.
Save it for that show.
That's gonna be a good one, and please come back for that one. That's gonna be a good one too. All right, well, thank you so much for being here, JT. We love having you.
I hope I didn't bore everyone too much. I know it kind of dragged on there for a little bit.
Well, I mean, it wasn't you. It's the story does drag on a little bit, but you got to tell all of it to get like the full context of it.
And you added a shitload of detailed stuff that I had not recognized in looking into this in the past.
And you came prepared. Like you came prepared to answer questions. So hey, you did a great job, dude. Great job. So anything you want to plug?
Be dabbling live tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. Call in, everybody. The guy answering the phones will probably put you on there.
Call in with your best JT impression. Reading a famous line from a classic novel.
I'm not sure what they got planned. All I know is I'm on the phones for half the show.
Awesome. And you were great on Idiot Autopsy last night. That is Cardiff show.
It's so hard being on a show with those guys. I feel like I'm playing basketball with like Jordan and Kobe. It's like I don't know what the fuck to say.
I know.
And then I come here on a show with you, and it's like I feel like I'm Lou Gehrig playing ball against Vito Santana or something.
With who?
I don't know. Some guy.
Was that a pro wrestler?
Maybe. Just as good. But I'm glad at least Corndiff was here, though. Thank God.
That's great. I'm playing basketball with Randy Macho Man Savage.
Yeah, you might. Tell me about ski poles. I'm like, I don't even want to get into that.
I was suggesting that was evidence of an avalanche. We got way too deep into that one. Yeah. All right. So thank you so much for being here. Yes. You are great. And yes, I know what you mean. I've been on the show, and those guys are substantially more funny than me, and it's very intimidating. So it's weird to even have a conversation sometimes with them. But yeah, but you do great. You do fantastic. Corndiff, I'm going to hold on here. What would you like to plug, sir?
WGNN. It's a show I do. My channel at Corndiff on YouTube. Go there now. Not now. Later. Go there later.
Where you hear the best and most up-to-date conversation on the technology of fishing lures. Man,
yeah,
that broke my brain. That broke my brain the way that this broke my brain. I had no idea there was so much complicated technology in fishing.
It gets weird. Yeah.
Yes. And so, folks, please check me out this Sunday on Unboxing Eric on Hack Ride Studios channel. That is going to be 10 Eastern, 9 Central. And we have also started doing Unboxing Riley on Thursdays, 10 Eastern, 9 Central. Every other Wednesday, we're going to be doing a random unboxing of the Howard Stern Show. And also, please check out my video of playing Demonologist with Gummi Chainsaw. A lot of fun, and maybe doing some more of that with some special guests. That's a good one. That was really fun. I had a lot of fun doing that, and big shout out to Gummi Chainsaw for introducing me to that. All right. So the way we like to end this show, as always, is with a motivational quote from Corndiff. Corndiff, you got something ready?
Sure. Answers often
hold
hide.
on.
Wait.
I like to make you the
I
center.
feel like I gotta get a new one now. Answers often hide where the cold runs deepest. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
God, that's so perfect. Good night, everybody.
That's right, it sucks.